Hello, my name is Tassanee Sanchez, and I will be presenting an integrated approach on EMDR with trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy. So a little overview. Today, we'll go through a personal background on what made me choose this integrated approach, and then I will go into trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, what that is, what it looks like, and then what it looks like integrated with EMDR. And then we'll move on to psychodrama and how that can be a supplement to both these. And then finally, we'll look at a Christian integration. So a personal background on myself. My best friend was sexually assaulted, sadly, 2 years ago, and she tried many different talk therapies and nothing really helped. It was only when she finally tried EMDR that she found great success and was able to heal. And so I decided to pursue my doctorate in community care and counseling. And that's when I really dived into EMDR and found that it was an approach that I could see myself implementing in the future. A little bit of background on cognitive behavioral therapy. It was developed in the 1960s by a man named Aaron Beck, who you see on the screen. And originally it was just used to treat depression, but it eventually developed and molded into a treatment that now helps many different disorders. And cognitive formulation is at the heart of CBT and helps counselors understand different underlying cognitive processes. So a background on trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, which I'll sometimes refer to as TFCBT. It is relatively new, just developed in 1997 by Anthony Manarino, Judith Cohen, and Esther DeBlinger. And it was originally developed for just children, specifically who had been sexually abused and their parents or caregivers. But now it's used for children and adolescents, and then also their parents or caregivers. And children show great improvement after just a year of doing trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy compared to children who don't do it. So it really helps them with symptoms of PTSD, guilt, shame, depression, and behavior problems. And it also helped the parents. Some core principles of TFCBT. One core principle is that parents or primary caregivers play a huge role in helping their children heal. And these sessions are conducted separately for parents and children, but they run parallel to each other, and eventually they do merge. And joint parent-child sessions are a crucial way that communication kind of opens up, and there's really that family support. And then gradual exposure is also a core component of TFCBT, and it helps to desensitize individuals to traumatic triggers, which ultimately reduces the fear responses. And as therapy progresses, positive cognitive shifts naturally start to occur, which helps alleviate trauma-related fears. So some key techniques of TFCBT is that it's structured and it has three distinct phases: the initial stabilization, skill building phase, and then it moves on to trauma narrative and processing, and finally treatment consolidation. And each phase normally consists of an equal number of sessions. So the initial skill building phase or stabilization includes psychodrama, and counselors give information about different trauma responses and triggers in this stage. And I'll go into depth on what psychodrama is, but parenting skills sessions are also done in this stage with a focus on promoting positive interactions and reinforcements. Additionally, relaxation skills are provided to both the children and parents with personalized techniques to manage stress and promote calmness and tailored to individual preferences. And affect modulation skill sessions guide children in expressing and managing a range of emotions while also teaching problem-solving techniques and positive distractions. And finally, cognitive processing skills sessions help children recognize and change their maladaptive processing, which is very beneficial. So moving on to psychoeducation. What is psychoeducation? Well, psychoeducation uses group counseling to inform individuals about trauma responses and triggers. Psychoeducation can really be about anything, but in this case, it is specifically about trauma responses and triggers, and it validates clients' emotional reactions. So it's done in the first stage of TFCBT, and it helps inform clients about trauma responses and triggers, which ultimately helps them just better understand what's going on. And delivering psychoeducation in a large group setting is a great way to manage stress and is very successful for helping individuals with mild to moderate levels of anxiety and depression. So, trauma narrative and processing. There's around 2 to 6 sessions for this. And in this phase, the counselor guides the child through recounting traumatic experiences in increasing detail. And by doing this, it helps master avoidance issues and challenges maladaptive beliefs. This interactive process involves multiple sessions, 2 to 6 to be specific, and it allows the child to confront and try to put into words their most distressing memories. Meanwhile, parallel sessions are happening with the parents to provide them a deeper understanding on what their child's going through and how they can support them. And eventually, conjoint child-parent sessions are done, which help promote open communication and support. So then we move on to the final stage, integration and consolidation, which is around 2 to 8 sessions. So several key components are emphasized during this stage. In vivo mastery is one, and it involves gradual exposure to feared situations. And this stage is really supported by parent involvement, helping encourage their child and reassure them. And conjoint child-parent sessions are a good platform for open communication to happen about the traumatic experience. And the exploration of various topics from healthy sexuality to family dynamics really helps strengthen that family bond also. So personalized, my personal approach. So my focus has always been on trauma recovery. And specifically, I want to help individuals who are victims of childhood sexual abuse. From doing research in my dissertation, I have read and learned about the countless negative outcomes that childhood sexual abuse has on children and adolescents and even adults later on in life. And some of these, just to name a few, are mood disorders, anxiety disorders, PTSD, substance use, eating disorders, sexual dysfunction, and suicidal thoughts. And my mom started an orphanage actually for HIV positive children in Chonburi, Thailand, where a lot of these kids come from a lot of abuse. And so in making my own personalized approach, I wanted something practical that I could eventually help my mom's orphanage with, because ultimately my dream is to move back to Thailand and help my mom run the orphanage together. And then eventually when she gets older and retires, to kind of take over. And so I really felt like an approach that uses TFCBT with EMDR and psychodrama would be perfect in healing these children, along with Jesus, of course. So childhood sexual abuse. So sadly, there's a very high rate of childhood sexual abuse, around 24%. Another study said 1 in 6 children. That's high and that's sad. So it's usually not done by a stranger. It's usually someone these children know and trust. And so ultimately that breaks their trust and distorts their idea of love in their brain. And this is why I want to focus on childhood sexual abuse, because it has a huge impact for the rest of their life. So KK's story, KK she's the one with her head tilted the most, and she came from just a lot of sexual abuse from her mom and her mom's boyfriend, and eventually her mom got arrested. So she got sent to her dad, who was a construction worker, and he wanted a better life for her. So he worked hard, but unfortunately, at just 4 years old, he had to go to work and couldn't bring her. And so he would lock her in the tin shack that he lived in and leave a bowl of rice pudding on the dirt floor. And he would come back every day and see how, you know, deflated she was and how um, miserable she was. So he couldn't live with the guilt anymore. So he took them both one day down to a river and didn't know how to swim. And he was going to commit a murder-suicide. And luckily, these fishermen nearby saw him and came and rescued her, rescued him, sent him to a psych ward, and sent her to my mom's orphanage. And so she's 5 years old in this picture, and she's the same height and size as the 3-year-old next to her. And just the trauma that she had to endure was also partly what motivated me to find something practical that could help children like KK, um, who are going to struggle tremendously in the future from having gone through what no kid should go through. So why EMDR? So like TFCBT, EMDR significantly reduces depression symptoms and general psychiatric symptoms for individuals who have experienced childhood sexual abuse. EMDR was also found to improve individual self-esteem, especially victims of childhood sexual abuse. Also, I like that EMDR is not a short-term solution. In almost every study, it was a long-term effect that lasted. And I can truly see myself implementing this in the future. What is EMDR? So EMDR stands for Eye Movement Desensitization and Reprocessing Therapy. And it's an evidence-based treatment known for its effectiveness in addressing mental health issues, specifically trauma. It's structured. It heavily revolves around a model called the AIP model, Adaptive Information Processing, which we'll go into in this slide. So eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, EMDR, is grounded in the understanding provided by the AIP model, which goes into how trauma affects memory processing. And according to this theory, traumatic memories can disrupt rational information processing in the brain, which makes sense when you go through trauma. So bilateral stimulations, techniques such as eye movements with the fingers or tapping with the hands, are used to overcome these obstacles to help process traumatic memories. And as a result, individuals who go through EMDR therapy often experience a reduction in trauma symptoms. So what does EMDR look like? Well, it's an 8-step model, which we'll go into. And I would incorporate it into my trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy in a specific way, which we'll go into after. So phase 1 is client history. This is where you get the history of the client and identify any target treatments and prioritize targets. What do we want to work through? Phase 2 is preparation, and the therapist and the client build a strong therapeutic relationship. So rapport is really built in this stage. And the therapist helps the client understand what to expect from therapy. And they teach self-control techniques to manage emotions during and between sessions. So things to do in the session when hard feelings come up, and things to also do at home. Metaphors and stop signals are introduced to give the client a sense of control during the treatment. And the counselor also explains that the client's symptoms are normal and reassures them that what you're feeling, what you're going through is normal, completely normal and healthy. Phase 3 is assessment, where the counselor and client work together to choose one specific memory to focus on during the session. The client is asked to recall the most vivid image related to this disturbing memory and identify any negative beliefs connected to it. maybe shame, fear, guilt. And this can help uncover the irrationality of the event. Positive beliefs that counteract these negative thoughts are also introduced to support the healing process. In this phase, there's two measurements used called VOC and SUD, which we'll go into. So the VOC, Validity of Cognition Scale, is used in EMDR, usually a 1 to 7 scale, where 1 signifies that's completely false, it's a lie, I don't believe it. And 7, I know it in my bones, it's true, it's 100%. So this tool assesses the extent to which a client embraces a positive thought as genuine and helps monitor the client's progress throughout session. So you can compare at the beginning if they were feeling, I don't know, shame at a 7, and at the end they're at a 1, well, then EMDR has been effective. Or reversely, if they had a 1 for a positive belief, like I am worth more than what they say I am, to at the end of therapy being a 7, then you also know EMDR has been effective. And oh, I think I'm blocking, but subjective units of distress gauges anxiety levels during exposure sessions, spanning from no distress to extreme distress. And this one, it's total relaxation, I feel great, to full panic, I feel anxiety. And it's used by both children and adults to express their anxiety levels, often with some kind of visual aid to help children identify different feelings. So for myself, as I'm going to probably be working with children and adolescents, I would probably have some kind of picture scale rather than a number scale where children can point to how they're feeling. And it's also a universal language. So working in Thailand, that will be a great tool to use. So phase 4 is installation. And here the counselor works with the client to change how they experience their distressing memories. This phase aims to reduce the trauma-related sensory experiences and associations while also boosting the client's sense of control and understanding. The client is guided to focus on a distressing image while also engaging in eye movement. So this is where you see kind of the eyes following the bilateral stimulations. And after each set of eye movement, the client takes a deep breath and then is guided to mentally clear their mind. The therapist adjusts the focus and the pace of the session based on the client's responses and their needs. Phase 5 is called, phase 4 was desensitization, sorry, and phase 5 is installation. And the therapist works to strengthen positive beliefs to replace negative ones. So again, you can use the scale, and the goal is to boost the positive belief until it feels completely 100% true. I know it in my bones. I feel it in my bones. And this is done by pairing the positive belief with the previously negative material while using the bilateral stimulation. Phase 6 is the body scan, where the client checks their body just to see if they're feeling any tension related to the session. So if there is any tension, the client, is encouraged to acknowledge it, take deep breaths, and try to relieve it that way. Phase 7 is debriefing and closure. And here the counselor guides the client in using self-control techniques if the reprocessing isn't fully complete. This helps the client return to a state of just balance. The counselor also discusses what to expect between sessions and encourages the client to keep a record of any distressing or disturbing thoughts or feelings that arise in between sessions. So if you feel a panic attack coming on, write it down. If you have a nightmare, write it down. And this is also where the container exercise is used, which I personally love, which we'll go into depth here. So the container exercise is a valuable tool in therapy, and it helps clients manage distressing thoughts and memories while also helping their confidence in addressing traumatic experiences. So here, clients are encouraged to put any negative memories or thought processes in a jar to hold, not to avoid, but just to hold if it's blocking their progress so that they can move forward. And so just visualizing or even having some kind of jar can be really helpful for clients. Phase 8 is reevaluation. And during reevaluation, the therapist reviews the progress of treatment to ensure it's effective and identifies any additional targets that may need to be addressed. And implementation. So a study by Hoogsteder found that a combination of EMDR with TFCBT had a significant effect of reducing trauma symptoms and also behavioral problems, which will be the goal for me. However, one of the main findings was that treatment was the most effective for older adolescents. So for this reason, I am going to target my therapy treatment towards older adolescents, ages 15 to 19. So this is originally different than I thought I would be counseling. And obviously I won't turn a child or an adult down, but I do want my focus to be on this age range as it has the biggest impact. I would implement EMDR during the trauma narrative and processing phase, which is phase 2. And this phase is characterized by exploring and addressing traumatic memories and their associated thoughts, emotions, and sensations. EMDR can complement trauma-focused CBT by providing a targeted approach to processing these memories, which also enhances the effectiveness of trauma resolution. And additionally, EMDR can be beneficial during the reprocessing and installation phases of TFCBT, where it can help strengthen positive thoughts and address any residual distress. So I want to make sure that my approach is truly client-centered, and that will mean that each session looks different as it's specific to the client. One client may need more time in exposure, while another client may need more time creating positive thoughts. My role. So in my role as the counselor, I will be responsible for structuring the therapeutic process, ensuring that each session is organized and focused on the client's needs. Again, client-centered. I will be in charge of creating a safe and supportive environment where the client feels comfortable exploring their thoughts, emotions, and experiences, really building that rapport. Guiding the client through the phases of TFCBT and EMDR, I will help them navigate the therapeutic journey, addressing trauma-related issues and promoting healing. Additionally, I will adjust the dosage, the speed, and the rhythm of bilateral stimulation during EMDR sessions to optimize effectiveness and comfort for the client. And by continuously monitoring the client's progress, I can track their responses to therapy interventions and then make adjustments where needed to, again, keep it client-centered. Cultural humility. So cultural humility involves openness, curiosity, and respect towards diverse backgrounds. And it involves acknowledging personal biases and looking at things from different perspectives, which will help build rapport with clients. And by embracing humility, counselors seek to improve their work with diverse clients, creating a safe and empowering environment where cultural influences are validated and valued. So integrating cultural humility in my personalized approach in Thailand will mean probably incorporating a questionnaire to begin to find out about my client's background, religious affiliations, anything else. Because Thailand is a predominantly Buddhist nation, I will have to make sure that I remain sensitive and respectful to different religions, probably Buddhism. As I am a Christian myself, I have to make sure that I come with an open mind and an open heart to really help with healing. And one way to also show cultural humility is by asking open-ended questions to gain a sense of curiosity and also just to show respect, acknowledging that I don't know everything. Specific trauma. So to recap, the specific trauma that I will be focusing on is childhood sexual abuse. And This can be defined as any sexual interactions or activities with a minor, anything, touching, anything. So I'll be focusing on adolescent girls as I feel I can relate mostly to girls. And just in teaching, I found that girls really find trust in me and feel that they can share things with me. And I've actually had a girl disclose an instance of childhood sexual abuse, sadly. So I feel that I'm good at creating a safe environment for young girls. Psychodrama. The last technique that I will be offering as a supplement to TFCBT and EMDR is psychodrama, and it's rooted in Moreno's therapeutic philosophy. It explores life events through principles such as role theory and creativity, and it offers a range of techniques and forms of work to facilitate this exploration effectively. This is done by clients acting out different roles and putting themselves in another person's shoes by looking at their point of view. And I loved drama class growing up, so I can definitely see myself using this. The effectiveness. Clients often experience a notable reduction in PTSD symptoms through this approach. This process is actually often pleasurable, which makes individuals engage in it more fully. It also fosters a heightened awareness of symptoms, which allows clients to address their symptoms more effectively. Additionally, participants often gain access to some emotions that might have been suppressed previously, which obviously allows for deeper healing and understanding. Group psychodrama. So I will use group psychodrama as it's cheaper and I can see more clients at once. And it will help clients develop their social emotional skills while also acting out traumatic events from their past, which will help me kind of gain a deeper insight into what they went through. This will not be in place of TFCBT integrated with EMDR. It will be in addition to, so it will be complementary. This will be especially beneficial for clients who want to see me more than once a week, as I can monitor progress with many different people at once. Christian integration of TFCBT. Integrating trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy with a Christian worldview involves incorporating elements of Christian faith into therapy sessions. This can include practices such as prayer and also discussing relevant scripture. Therapists can take either an implicit or an explicit approach based on the client's preferences. In an implicit approach, religious elements are introduced indirectly, while in an explicit approach, oppositely, they're addressed directly and integrated directly. And it's led by the client, usually, by the desire of the client. And if I do counsel in a school system before I move to Thailand, then it will probably have to be implicit. And Christian integration of EMDR. The biblical perspective highlights humanity's inherent brokenness and the necessity for spiritual healing. However, EMDR places a high emphasis on self-healing, and this may conflict with the Christian belief in relying on God for transformation, but just like anything, if you integrate EMDR with God's guidance, it can be a valuable tool and resource in therapeutic practice. Christian integration of psychodrama, on the other hand, it resonates with many Christian principles. For example, Moreno's role reversal technique encourages empathy and understanding by allowing individuals to look beyond just their own perspective, to put themselves in other people's point of view. This is done by clients acting out various roles, and this sort of mirrors humility demonstrated by Jesus, who, despite being the Lord, took on a servant role on earth. And then helping orphans heal. Ultimately, my work in counseling will prepare me to move back to Thailand to fulfill my lifelong calling of helping orphans heal from trauma. And using TFCBT mixed with EMDR will be a great tool to help me help these kids. But ultimately, it will be through God's healing that they will be completely healed. And one verse that kind of guides everything I do and everything I want to do is James 1, verse 27, which says, "Religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this, to visit orphans and widows in their affliction, and to help oneself and to keep oneself unstained from the world." And so I will be doing this by helping orphans, which I'm very excited about. And also, my mom was adopted when she was a kid, and I want to help other kids like her who've been through so much and are in desperate need of healing. So just a summary, we looked at my personal theoretical integrated approach, which was trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy mixed with EMDR and psychotherapy. And my approach, although I thought would be for children, has changed to be for adolescent girls as it is most impactful at that age. And it will be to help heal from trauma of childhood sexual abuse or childhood abuse. Here are my references. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed.